Daniel Rothman had never come home early in his life. Not once in 20 years of building an empire from sleepless nights, ruthless deals, and boardroom wars that left competitors trembling. The city knew him as a billionaire whose presence could move markets, crush rivals, and rewrite the rules of power. But tonight, something inside him felt unbearably heavy. It was as if all the victories, all the money, all the influence he had amassed were suddenly meaningless, gnawing at him with teeth he had never noticed before. Without explanation, Daniel left his office. The stunned faces of his executives barely registered in his mind. He didn't wave. He didn't speak. He drove through streets that glimmered with cold, indifferent city lights, thinking only of silence, of rest, of being somewhere that didn't demand his attention. His car cut through the night like a shadow, and for the first time in years, he longed for a place where he didn't have to be a billionaire, where his name carried no weight, no expectation. When he arrived at his mansion, the first thing he noticed was the quiet, or rather, the wrong kind of quiet. A house this large should echo emptiness, the way it usually did, carrying the ghosts of wealth and solitude through marble halls. But tonight, the silence felt unnatural, oppressive, like the walls themselves were holding their breath. Daniel paused at the front door, key in hand, a chill crawling up his spine. Before he could even step inside, a hand gripped his arm with surprising force. A voice whispered into his ear, "Be quiet. Don't say a word." He turned to see Elena, the maid he barely noticed in his daily life, standing in the shadows. Her eyes were wide with urgency, her face pale, and her presence radiated something he had never expected: courage. She wasn't shaking from fear. She was trembling from necessity. And in that instant, Daniel felt a fear more real than any business loss, more sharp than any deal gone wrong. Elena guided him silently through the hallway, each step a careful negotiation with danger. They slipped into a storage room beside the stairs, and she closed the door softly behind them. Her breath brushed against him as she pressed a finger to her lips, her urgency tangible, almost electric. Daniel's mind raced, but no words came. He realized quickly that in this moment, his billions meant nothing. Then he heard them. Footsteps upstairs, slow, deliberate, and unfamiliar. A metallic click, careful, measured, and precise. Elena's hand covered his mouth, not gently, but as if the sound of his own breath could betray them. Her whisper cut through the tension like a knife. "They're here for you." Daniel froze. All the plans, all the strategies, all the power he had wielded like a weapon, none of it could save him now. And yet, in this nightmare, one person was his lifeline. One person he had barely acknowledged had noticed everything: the strange car outside, the back door left ajar, the faint creak that whispered of intrusion. She had acted when everyone else would have hesitated, when everyone else would have looked away. As they crouched together in suffocating silence, Elena's mind drifted to memories she had never shared. Her father had once worked security for a powerful family. He had died trying to warn them of a threat they refused to believe. She had vowed then that she would never stay silent again, no matter her position, no matter the cost. And now, in this room, she was living that promise. Upstairs, the intruders searched methodically. Drawers were pulled open, frames knocked over, whispers of curses and names carried down the halls. Daniel finally understood the truth he had ignored for decades: threats never die, they only wait for the right moment. The people he had dismissed, the rivals he had crushed, the mistakes he had buried, all had come to his doorstep. And for the first time, he felt genuine remorse, not for losing money, not for losing power, but for losing humanity. Minutes stretched like hours. Elena's quiet determination became the thread holding his sanity together. She had already called the police, timing everything with precision, anticipating every move. Daniel, who once believed himself untouchable, realized the weight of every callous decision he had made, the lives he had overlooked, the dignity he had taken for granted. The sirens in the distance signaled relief and danger intertwined. The intruders fled through the back door, panic replacing their calculated cruelty. Daniel sank to the floor, his carefully crafted armor of power cracking for the first time in his life. He looked at Elena, not as a maid, not as background, but as a hero. She had risked everything without hesitation, saving a man who had spent decades thinking he owned the world. Tears slid down her face silently, hidden behind restraint and fear she had never allowed herself to show. Daniel's voice broke as he thanked her, and for the first time, he truly understood the difference between wealth and worth. One could buy influence, but not loyalty, courage, or integrity. Those had to be earned, and in that moment, Elena had given them freely. In the days that followed, Daniel's world changed. He reopened the cases he had buried, reached out to families affected by his ruthless decisions, and took steps to ensure no one under his employ felt invisible. Elena was promoted, not out of pity, but out of respect. And programs were funded to protect workers who dared to speak up, because Daniel had learned a lesson far more valuable than any deal or acquisition. True power is not loud, it does not demand recognition, and it does not reside in a bank account. True power, Daniel realized, sometimes comes as a quiet whisper in a dark room. Sometimes it comes from the most unexpected places, from those we overlook, those we underestimate. It comes from courage without fame, bravery without reward, and a refusal to stay silent in the face of danger. And as he walked through his mansion afterward, the silence was no longer oppressive. It was alive with lessons learned, with humanity rediscovered. Daniel Rothman, billionaire, titan of industry, and master of deals, now understood the value of humility, empathy, and gratitude. Not from textbooks, not from advisors, but from a maid who had whispered, "Don't say a word," and saved his life. If this story moved you, if it reminded you that courage can emerge from the least expected corners of our lives, don't forget to subscribe. Stories like this aren't just entertainment, they are proof that humanity, bravery, and integrity still exist in a world that often forgets their worth. And sometimes, all it takes to change everything is a quiet act of defiance. A single brave whisper. A heartbeat in the dark.